and they are walking on a very dangerous line for the entire time that these men are gone. And the men of France are not there to protect their country. They have the invasion of Germans, and these Germans, I don't want to say they destroy the country because we all know that France is still there, but the people that they left behind, they may or may not have destroyed those people. So
at least their spirits.
Of course. And so just the way that Kristin Hannah portrays that story is so beautiful, and I highly recommend the book. There's a couple inconsistencies that I found.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not gonna name them, but there are some inconsistencies for sure.
No, I'm curious. I want you to name them.
Okay, like, well, okay. There's this one scene that Isabel takes a bike, and she rides it she takes it, I think, from the Germans.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah.
And she rides it back to the resistance. But in the beginning of that chapter, they were saying how snowy it was that day, and that you couldn't even walk in it. And I was like, how could she ride a bike? And then B, if she could ride a bike, that track would lead the Germans to the resistance.
Oh, true.
So I was like, that's gonna come up, and it never did.
Wow.
So just like
You're such an attentive listener.
Tiny things like that. Where I was like, that's not real. So I do have to, I guess, hit on that, but
that's fair. I mean, you're allowed to critique the book. What you said about, like, maybe I said it when I was trying to finish your sentence, and I don't know if I was correct, but like breaking your spirits, like basically they invade France and they tear the whole country apart. Mm-hmm. I think that might be a good segue into my beer.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Okay.
I would actually love to hear why you picked your beer.
All right. So, mine's called Summit Sunrise by Denver Beer Company. Looking at their website, Denver Beer Company describes their beer as reminiscent of a Colorado sunrise from a mountain peak. So beautiful picture. And that's so true. Beautiful. I mean, the color is like a dark red. It's very pretty. And it's brewed for those who always seek the summit. So why did I choose this beer?
Why did you choose this beer, Beth?
What a good question. So sunrise in like literature and music is a symbol of birth, rebirth, like an awakening. Basically, it's like the meaning of a new day, obviously. And so, to me, these characters, your beer describes this well. There's two different methods that these women choose to participate in this war. One is Isabel's way, which is she wants to be part of the resistance. She chooses to fight for France. And in the very beginning of the book, you learn that, like, Isabel's been kicked out of schools all the time. She's very rebellious. She really needs to just basically fit in, and she wants people to love her. She's been abandoned by her father, she thinks, abandoned by her sister, who tries to take care of her, but then ultimately just sends her away to these, like, boarding schools. Vianne, at the other road, is basically she's a mother, so she's got a kid that she needs to raise. Her husband's in the war. She needs to just survive. That's her road she takes, is she's just surviving right now, thinking that the war isn't going to last as long as it does. Her husband will come back soon. They'll resume a normal life. Everything will be fine. So obviously that doesn't happen, or else the book wouldn't be this big. They both have wrenches thrown into their plan. Everything gets foiled. And for Vianne, she has a daily struggle of surviving with a Nazi. And every single day she, like, sends a letter to her husband, just hoping that he'll come back soon, and she never hears back. So she's just hoping for that sunrise the next day. She's hoping that the war will end. Suddenly France will win, and the Nazis will be fucking gone from her house and her country and her neighborhood. She can't do anything without running into a Nazi in her house and going into the market to, like, buy her food for the day. She She can't even do anything like that without running into a Nazi. So every single day, she's just trying to survive. Isabel, again, like I said, she's trying to find her place in this world. And for her, in my opinion, her sunrise would be finding the niche in her world. And in Isabel's opinion, that's being a part of the resistance. Mm-hmm. Her sunrise would be to participate in the war, to save people's lives, not just her own and her family's, but people who will fight the Nazis, like fallen pilots and British soldiers, American soldiers, anybody who's going to kill these Nazis and ultimately win the war. So, yeah, I think that might summarize why I chose the sunrise, is because they both have a different kind of path, but their main goal is to just get through this war. And I don't think this is a spoiler, but at one point Isabel just says, I have to survive. I have to survive.
Right.
That's all she's looking forward to, is just surviving this war.
Right.
And so one day, you know, it might come. Her sunrise is going to finally come. So that's why I chose My Beer. I think it relates to just it's the small amount of optimism that you have during a really shitty time. Yeah. You're looking forward to that next day. You're looking forward to the sunrise. And even if you can't see it, which, God, this book was so painfully beautiful. It like fucking hurts sometimes to just keep reading, because it just feels like there's no hope for some of these characters. Yeah. And yet they wait for that day. They wait for that sunrise to come, and they wait for their lives to get better. And it's totally respectable, like you were saying, with the story of like the women enduring the war isn't, if it's touched upon, I haven't read many books about it. Sure. So listening or reading this book and relating to these women of how much they had to deal for their families and for their goals of surviving in the war, whether it be saving pilots' lives or saving their kids' life, you know, it was amazing.
I appreciate this book because it puts into perspective the hardships of World War II, and it puts into perspective that our life, no matter how shitty it is, it's not shitty. Exactly. It's not shitty. Every single page I turned, at least the second half of this book, I'm just weeping. And I was crying on every single page turn. And it's not because Kristin Hannah was painting this sad story. It's because she was trying to put her feet into the shoes of the women that lived through World War II. And the thing that made me cry and made it real for me was the fact that this kind of shit actually happened. Yeah. And that, like, she referred to some stuff, some real stuff that happened. And after the book was over, I went just Google crazy at work one day. Me too. And I was like, tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. I want to know more about this concentration camp. And I want to know more about this particular battle. I want to know more about this and this and this. And reading up on the actual facts after I was done with the book just made it that much more sweet, of the book itself, of holy cow, like I have no worries. We don't have to, we're so darned blessed.
Good censorship.
As they say in Oklahoma.
Hashtag blessed.
But yeah, it's just, that's probably why I love this book, is because by the end of it, I was thankful and I was grateful to be, I don't know why I got this life. Yeah. And I don't know why I have the privilege to sit here with technology and beer and a full belly, and I have a car, and I have a roof over my head, and I have friends who love me, and I have a husband who loves me. Like, all of that stuff is just amazing. So amazing.
Amazing.
Today's word of the day. Amazing.
And every day, because that's all I say. Amazing.
Amazing.
This book for me, it was interesting to find out like who would I choose to be in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had to have chosen which path I would take, would be Isabel's and being part of the resistance, or would it be Vianne's and taking care of her family? It was such a weird juxtaposition to be in.
Yeah.
Because, it's my first instinct is to say, yeah, I want to fight these Nazis, and
Right.
I would be in the resistance and participating in that. But then you find out what she did, and it's like,
Intense.
how did she do that?
Right.
And this is actually based on a real person.
Right.
Isabel's story is based on a real person. And look it up on Wikipedia if you're interested. I
Yeah.
don't remember her name. But basically, this woman did...
Do the things that Isabel did in the
thank
book.
you. Thank you for avoiding that.
Yeah.
She
was
did
about to go
exactly
into
the
spoiler
thing.
mode. I had to cut her off.
Thank you. Yeah, she did all of these things, and I can't believe that person exists, and I want to research her more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings me to the point of like enjoying the hell out of fiction books that make you want to learn more about the real life
Right.
that actually happened behind
Right.
it. Like, what inspired this book? Sure, it's fiction. Obviously, Vienna and Isabel don't exist, but that real person does, and these women in World War II did
There's
exist.
a real story. There are thousands of real stories behind Vianne's story.
Yes, exactly.
There are...
How a mother survived.
Yeah, there are plenty of stories behind Isabel, and those are real women. And it's just, it blows my mind that this is just, yes, it's fiction, but at the same time, she pulls a fictional story from the women that actually had to live through this. And this is World War II happened. And sometimes it's easy to forget about in 2018, where it's not something that we definitely take for granted, the things that they went through so that we could have the life that we have right now. And it's awesome.
This book's amazing.
This book is amazing.
I wish that we could say more about it to a broader audience, but every detail of this book is so important, and a spoiler.
It's all spoilers.
I can't say any more than it's a story of two women in World War II surviving, and like that's it.
Right.
Then beyond that, it's all this shit happens, and it's such.
But
a
if
good
you're
read.
not into war stories,
you'll love this book still.
you will love it, because it's not there's no like major big what's the word I'm looking for?
War action.
There's not a lot of war action.
That wasn't right.
There's not a lot of action. There is. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyways, it's not a typical war story, and we've said that already, but I'm babbling now.
This book is so hard to talk about. Seriously, like, there's so many things I want to say right now, but I'm, like, worried they're going to be spoilers. I'm just going to fucking say it, and if you decide it's a spoiler, you can edit it out. But one of the big things in this book for me was I don't have kids. I've never been able to feel what Vianne feels for her kids, or even their father feels for his kids.
Mm-hmm.
In that you will do anything to make sure they survive. I have so much respect for this fictional character, Vianne, for dealing with every single hardship that a family could get thrown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she had so many different obstacles as a mother, as a woman,
Right.
and as a sister, and any obstacle you could fucking think of, she had to handle it.
Without her husband.
Without her husband, without her sister, without telling her kids. It was so heartbreaking.
Right.
If, in a word, this book, heartbreaking.
It was one of those books that at the end of it, I just hugged the book. Have you ever done that?
No.
where you actually love it and you just want to hug it while you're crying?
I was ugly crying. I was like reading it in bed and trying not to wake up my husband. Yeah. And I'm just like, it was like the huffing, like you can't catch your breath kind of cries.